Hello, and welcome to Becoming the Educator They Need Mindsets and Strategies for Educating Black and Latino Males. My name is Dr. Shania Suggs, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources in Wayne Township Schools. I also proudly represent the Indiana Black Expo Education Conference Planning Committee and welcome you here today. I will serve as your moderator for this session. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. Remember, if you have a question, please type it in the Q&A, and we will get to as many as possible at the end of the session. Also, please remember to complete the session survey. Your answers will help the planning committee for next year's conference. Towards the end of the session, there will be a link in the chat box that will connect you with the survey. Again, if you have questions you would like the presenter to address, please put those in the Q&A, and the survey at the end will be in the chat box. I am excited to introduce you to our presenter for this session. I promised him that I would not read his extensive and impressive bio because he wants to claim all of his time to present and give you an opportunity to ask questions. But I must share that Mr. Robert Jackson comes to us with over 25 years of experience in education. His goal is to teach educators and administrators how to use their power more effectively to educate, activate, and motivate all students to be successful. He has used his diverse experience as a former NFL player, an educator, mentor, motivational speaker, and coach to touch the lives of children. He has published 6 books and written numerous articles. His most recent publication, Becoming the Educator They Need, Strategies, Mindsets, and Beliefs for Supporting Male, Black, and Latino Students, was released in August of 2019 by ASCD. Without further ado, please welcome Mr. Robert Jackson.
Thank you, Dr. Suggs, for that kind introduction. I appreciate that. What Dr. Suggs forgot to tell you guys is NFL stands for not for long. So I played in the National Football League, but not for long. I found myself in the classroom probably before I was ready to get into the classroom, but I went in kicking and screaming. Unlike some of you, I know you were ready when you walked into a classroom. I was not ready. In fact, on my first couple of days of teaching, I was lost more than the kids were. In fact, I came in lost on most days, and a couple times I felt like driving off in the morning. So if you haven't felt like driving off in the morning, then you have not been in education long enough, because secondary traumatic stress is real. And then you couple that with the pandemic and everything that's going on. Listen, I know there's some anxiety, there's some stress out there, but we still have to educate, activate, and motivate kids to be successes. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to become the educator our Black and Latino males need. I'll be talking from the book, Becoming the Educator They Need. It just won the Gold Excel Award the other day. And I'm really proud of this work because we needed to bring some realism to what's going on, especially with our Black and Hispanic male population. So I'm going to be talking about that today. Before I get started, I want to give you a disclaimer. Listen. I'm going to be talking about a subject matter that's near and dear to my heart, but a lot of stuff I'm going to be discussing today is going to be touchy. And when we're talking about racism and discrimination and cultural barriers, everybody wants to get uncomfortable. But I promise you, if you're feeling uncomfortable, that means that you're growing. And we have to make sure that we're having these tough conversations because our kids are the ones who are being affected by it. So we have to be able to have these kind of conversations. And even though it's uncomfortable, the implicit biases are real. So I want to make sure that we understand that. And I know I'm getting questions already, but we're going to get to your questions throughout and toward the end. So we're going to talk about how do we become the educator that these young men need, right? So thank you for joining us today. I see we have over 700 people on the webinar so far. Let's jump right into this, right? I don't like to beat around the bush. Ignorance is the fact of not knowing. The refusal to become educators is purposeful. I say ignorance is the fact of not knowing. The refusal to become educated is purposeful. What does that mean to you? So ignorance is the fact of not knowing. Sometimes we just don't know. We ignorant to the fact. Some of you heard that term before. I'm ignorant to the fact. I just don't know. But the refusal to become educated is purposeful. When you refuse to become educated about something that's near and dear to society, it's near and dear to the education system. When you refuse to become educated, that is on purpose. So we have to make sure that we understand that these conversations need to take place, but you're never going to learn until the conversation actually takes place. I've been in education for 25 years, but I've also been a student. I'm also a parent. I just became a grandparent a month ago. I had my first grandchild. So because I have the experiences, I've been on this earth for 49 years. I've been in the school system. I've taught in the school system. I've led teams in the school system. I have a little bit of experience in this area. So we're going to be talking about that. So I like to do that disclaimer. And if you want additional information, I'm going to give you time at the end to ask questions. So you'll have time to do that as well. So thank you for joining us today. Now, when you see this picture, many of you have seen this already. You see the picture of George Floyd with this guy with his knee on his neck, with his hands in his pocket. Now, me as a man of color, this is nothing new for me. For some of you, this is new. For me, it's not new because I have experienced this over and over and over again. And many times we've been traumatized so many times that it has become a little bit redundant, you know? So somebody's saying, will these slides be available through a link? And we're going to make sure that we have some of these slides available to you so you can contact Indiana Black Expo and Jennifer Darby and Tanya Bell, who's did a great job of putting this together. So, but when you see this picture, it shouldn't have took somebody having their foot on somebody or their knee on somebody's neck for us to wake up and understand that the racial discrimination and the cultural barriers are happening in our society, and they're happening every single day. Last year alone, 1.2 million Black and brown males were suspended from school. And my problem is what happens after the suspension, right? So we have kids who are coming in already with anxiety and they seeing this type of stuff. And many of you seeing this execution, and I'm gonna call it what it is. It was an execution on national TV where you hear a grown man yell out for his mother who's been dead for 2 years. And what makes somebody put their knee on somebody's neck with their hands in their pockets and don't care if this man can live or die, if he can breathe? What makes somebody kick somebody out of school for trivial reasons, right? So I've been suspended from school. When I was a student, I got suspended close to 20 times. Now, before you start being judgmental, I'm gonna take responsibility for half of those suspensions. Now, half the time it was me, I did something. But I'm talking about the other half when I was suspended for trivial reasons. Teacher said I looked at her the wrong way. I got suspended for 3 days for that. What did I do? How you look at somebody the wrong way? So we need to make sure that we understand that our young men of color are coming in with anxiety because they see this. And they see this every single day. So if you've experienced something over and over again, and you've been traumatized, it affects you. It affects your psyche. It affects everything about your existence. And we're going to talk about that today, because we're going to talk about how men are wired. So Black and Latino males, we're the most dehumanized, degraded, especially for minor offenses, stereotyped, low expectations. And I'm not just talking about as being an educator, I'm talking about as being a student as well. And we had a teacher apologized after she posted a fake bullet on the head of a kid. This is a teacher that did this in Birmingham, Alabama. She put a fake bullet hole on the head of a kid. Now, what was the perception of this teacher? Because mental models are past events. They're media and messages we receive. They serve as filters through which we observe and interpret and respond to the world. They shape what we see, they shape what we hear and what we feel and what we do. See, your mental models give birth to stereotypes because something is wrong with you that you put a bullet hole on this young man's head, or has your perception become your reality? None of us chose our parents. None of us chose how we came up, but these type of things have got to stop in the school system, right? Somebody said, this is hard for me to watch due to white guilt and male shame. I look more like the perpetrator than the victim. I'm not sure what you mean there, but you say you look more like the perpetrator than the victim. I'm not sure what you mean there, and you're anonymous, so I can't call you by your name. But there's no need for you to feel guilty unless you're guilty of something, right? You say white guilt and male shame. So you don't have to be guilty. I mean, unless you're guilty. And if you are guilty of something, just straighten it out and change the behavior. We all have made some bad decisions. We all made mistakes. And like I said, we all have come up a certain way where we've been raised a certain way. So if you've been raised a certain way that was wrong and you've been doing things that are wrong, you need to apologize, you need to repent and go back and straighten it out and get it right, okay? So let's go to the next slide. I want to talk about how we see things, right? How do you see things? There's two ways that you see things, right? One is your physical vision. So physically, if you physically can see somebody, that is your physical vision. The second way you see something is your imagination. So that's thinking, that's planning, that's jumping to conclusions, that's your fear and your faith. All that happens in your imagination. And believe it or not, those two things flip-flop, because many times before we say something or before we see something, we already have it in our imagination. And sometimes we will see something and then our imagination takes over. So you have the physical vision and then you have the imagination. That's how you see things. Stay with me because I'm going somewhere with this. And I know your comments are coming in. We're going to get to those in a minute. But I want you to look at this screen. Okay, I want you to go to the chat or go to the Q&A, and I want you to write down everything you remember. Go. Write down everything you remember from that slide I just showed. And you don't have to come in anonymous. You don't have to come in anonymous because we all trying to learn here, right? Somebody said sleep, pillow, nap, dream, snooze. I thought that was pretty good. I'm seeing sleep. I'm seeing sleep. I'm seeing nap, dream, pillow, snooze, sleep. Some of y'all sleepy. Y'all better wake up. I'm gonna wake you up this morning. You know, I got a little bit of energy. I'm gonna pass on some of that energy to all 863 of you. So I'm gonna pass on that energy today. You can see me, but I can't see you, but I want to pass on that energy. Let's talk about what we saw on this screen, right? So let's go back to it. So you see slumber, dream, bed, quiet, pillow, night, blanket, pajamas, snooze, and nap. Where do you see sleep? See, how many of you wrote sleep down? Raise your hand. See, sleep is not on the list, but we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. I said, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are, right? So your perception becomes your reality. And according to Good and Brophy, educators form expectations for individual students' learning based primarily upon their own perception. And your perception has become your reality, whether you're wrong or right. And we have to make sure that our perception don't become reality because our perception can be wrong. And many of you wrote sleep down because you don't see things as they are. You see things as you are, right? So when you see this picture of these young men, what do you see? Give me one word, if you can put that in the Q&A. What do you see? One word when you see this, when you see these kids. Somebody says sharp, classy, formal, dapper, clean, excellent. See, some of you saying these things, but you can have two people looking at the same situation and see two totally different things, right? If you're not careful when you look at this picture, and I'm talking from experience, if you're not careful, you're only going to see what you expect to see. When my best friend was murdered when I was in high school, I was 16 years old, and my best friend, he didn't sell drugs. He wasn't out in the streets. He was a basketball player, and he didn't do any of these negative things. We were playing sports. We wanted to go to college together. He went to a party. He ended up getting killed at the party. Some guy came in there shooting. I was devastated. There's not been a day that's gone by since 1988. I haven't thought about Tony Binion. He went to Southport High School in Indianapolis, and just was a great friend of mine. I remember after I buried him and I came back to school, one of my teachers said, "Why are you back in school? You're going to end up dead or in prison like your friend." I was devastated. I was already dealing with trauma from my friend being murdered. And then I have an educator who tells me, "Why are you back in school? You're going to end up dead or in prison like your friend." That's what I'm talking about. If you're not careful, you're only going to see what you expect to see. And when somebody ends up on the news, they're already guilty, right? Let's talk about the power of words, right? Because their words have power. They have the ability to build up. but they also have the ability to tear down. You have to be careful with the words that you use, whether we're doing this virtually, in person, it really don't matter. Words matter, right? Words are a powerful weapon. They use to wound, they use to heal. They use peace comes from words, violence, fear, worry, all that stuff comes from words. And words do have power because words have the ability to build people up, but they also have the ability to tear down. So I asked you, it's two ways of seeing. You got your physical vision, and then you have the imagination. And what do you see and what do you expect when you see somebody that looks like me? And I know there's a myth out there that if somebody looks like me, they can understand me. No, I don't agree with that, because there's people who are of the same ethnicity who still don't understand each other. So that's a myth. So we have to make sure that we understand. I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there. I am not the ambassador for all men that look like me. I need to tell you that again, because when I was teaching at Arlington High School and everybody want to run and grab me when something happens with a young male of color, and I say, I am not the ambassador for all men of color. I am just one man, but I'm not the ambassador for all men, if that makes sense. I know we're getting a lot of comments in here, and I'm gonna try to get to all your questions. And I'm trying to get to those as fast as I can, but we're gonna go ahead and push through this presentation, and we're gonna get to those questions at the end, I promise you. Now, this was a middle school teacher. She posted this on social media. She said, why don't Blacks go back to Africa? She said, if Blacks in this country are so offended, no one's forcing them to stay here. Why don't they pack up and go back to Africa where they have to work for a living? And I am sure the government will pay for it. We always pay for everything else. Why is she teaching? And why is she teaching young people color? Young lady, I'm not going back to Africa because I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm going back to Indianapolis to visit, and I'm going back to Atlanta to live. So we have these comments, and the reason why I put this up here, because this is actually an educator. This is someone who's supposed to be educating, activating, motivating kids to be successes, but she's making these kind of derogatory comments. Here's another one. Miss Joanne Tucker said that if we want to make America great again, we will have to make evil people fear punishment again. Again, this is a teacher, okay? Well, she was a teacher. She was fired. I actually spoke with her superintendent, but she was fired. So we have to make sure that we're not making these kind of comments, but more importantly, her imagination, this is what she sees. With her physical vision, this is what she sees. So I'm not going to downplay that like it's not happening. We have to make sure we meet people where they are. And when you're having a conversation about race, make sure that you're doing more listening than talking, because everybody has a different perspective. So we have to make sure that we are respectful and that we understand that everybody has a different perspective. So I want to share this with you because I know somebody's on here screaming right now, but I want to share with you that if you're tired of hearing about racism, imagine how tired some people are of experiencing it. So if you're tired of hearing about it, imagine how tired some people are that they continue to experience these things, right? So what are some offensive words that you have heard yourself? Go ahead and put them in the Q&A. What are some offensive words that you've heard from colleagues or other people? Give me some offensive words that you have heard yourself. Okay, they're starting to come in. I'm seeing comments coming in. I'm gonna read some of these. Somebody said offensive words, all lives matter. Somebody said nigger, color, ghetto. I'm reading these comments. Lazy, those people, thugs. So some of you know what I'm talking about. And all these things you're saying are racial microaggression. Those people. Who are those people? Bebe's kids, ghetto. We read a lot of books about colored people. Oreo, those students. And we can keep going on and on. Those students are trash. As an educator, your number one job is to secure that student's attention. So our job is to educate, activate, motivate kids to be great. You cannot educate, activate, and motivate somebody if you're thinking they're an animal, or if you're thinking they're ghetto, or if you're thinking all these negative terms about students. Somebody said nigger, slums, Oreos. I'm reading these comments, and it's just amazing how people, I don't see color. And those are racial microaggressions, and we're going to talk about that. So let's talk about the 4 needs of every child. Number 1 is acceptance. Acceptance is the feeling of being loved. Every child wants to be loved. So you got to figure out ways, how can I help this young man or young person feel loved? I mean, you can reach out to them. You can say positive affirmations to them. So number 1 is acceptance. Number 2 is significance. Significance is the feeling of being special. Everybody wants to feel accepted. Everybody wants to feel significant. This is not just for babies. This is for us too. We want to feel accepted. We want to feel significant. Somebody said Hispanics are referred to as spics and wetbacks, crack and saying crack babies, illegals. So all these things are racial microaggressions. 4 needs of every child. Number 1 is acceptance. Number 2 is significance. Number 3 is security. And that's the feeling of being protected. Everybody needs the feeling of being protected, and not just protected in the physical sense. We got to do a better job of protecting emotions. But last but not least, purpose. So we got acceptance. Y'all stay with me. We got significance, we got security, and we got purpose. And I got my girl Aretha Britton say, I feel your heart and your passion from the start of the presentation. You know I'm fired up about this. Dr. Britton, man, we're going to make it happen out here today. And Dr. Britton is doing a great job in Wayne Township in Indianapolis. Acceptance, significance, security, and purpose. Those are 4 needs of every child. I guarantee you, if you help every child feel accepted, significant, secure, and with purpose, you're going to be halfway there in doing your job. I want to show you this video and get your thoughts. Now, I mention this to you because this is how Black and brown males are portrayed in the news. It's always something negative, call them thugs and hoodlums and all this stuff. But you have 2 white guys who murdered 30 people, and they called them troubled kids. You have 3 young men who were murdered, who never murdered anybody. They were murdered. They didn't murder nobody. And they're called thugs. They're called hoodlums. You know, when a white person or white male does something, they have mental illness. When a Black male's accused of something, he's already guilty. And in fact, the young man who murdered all those folks at that church, they took him to Burger King on his way to jail and gave him a cold water. I'm just saying that it's different. You know, the playing field is not even, and I want to get it out to you today, right? The playing field is not even. So you have insensitive acts that are due to media influence, because this young man, he decided he wanted to be Trayvon Martin on Halloween, right? Trayvon Martin was a person, and Trayvon Martin was a person, right? He's a person. He had a family. Trayvon Martin was a well-loved young man, and he was murdered by George Zimmerman. And then this guy decides he wanted to be Trayvon Martin for Halloween. So insensitive acts that are happening out here due to media influence. So we have to make sure that we're not being a part of that. 75% of our students who are exposed to traumatic events has an unmet need for mental health services. So we have a majority of our students right now that we see, or we were seeing daily, and that we're interacting with daily. They have need for mental health services because of the traumatic experiences that they have experienced over and over and over again. You're absolutely right. George Floyd was called a thug, a drug dealer, until the world started to recognize that he was murdered. You know, the first thing they started doing is calling this man all kinds of names. And that's a whole nother story. But, you know, think about all the times that it wasn't filmed. You know, when Michael Taylor was murdered, when I was 16 years old in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the backseat of a police car, it wasn't filmed. They said he committed suicide. Everybody know that you can't shoot yourself in the back of your head with your hands behind your back. But that's a whole nother story. So we have young men who cannot speak up for themselves. I'm going to be the voice for them today. 6 core values for educating Black and Latino males. Number 1 is love. Number 2 is trust. Then you have fairness, support, accountability, and safety. I said love. You can't put out fire with fire. Only love can do that. Trust. Trust is built over time. If somebody trusts you, then they're going to tell you everything that you want to know. Fairness. We got to be fair with everybody and not discriminate because we have our favorites. Accountability and safety. All those things are the core values that our young men need. I don't care if they walking in trying to pretend like they tough. That means nothing. If you show love, trust, fairness, support, accountability, and safety, you're halfway there in doing your job, because children who have been forced to deal with adult issues later become adults that wrestle with children issues. I'm gonna rewind that because somebody didn't hear me in the back. I said children who have been forced to deal with adult issues later become adults that wrestle with children issues. So you have children right now, we're in the midst of a pandemic, and there's a new pandemic going on. First of all, my sister's had coronavirus twice. She works in the medical field. Please practice social distancing. Please continue to stay safe. You're not the only one that want to go on vacation. You're not the only one that want to get out. But we have to practice social distancing, because I would love to be able to see all 945 of you in person. But because I can't, you still can hear me. You still can feel this message. I got a message from my good friend, says she can feel the passion and energy. So we got to keep doing what we can do. We control what we can control as educators, and what we can't control, we just got to move on, right? So we have kids who are wrestling with adult issues, and we're dealing with a new pandemic. It's called child abuse, and it's called domestic violence. So we have kids who are seeing things right now that they shouldn't be seeing. We have parents who are supposed to be the kids' first teacher who are damaging kids even more. And us as educators, we're dealing with our own anxieties about this thing. Like I said, my sister has had this. My sister had coronavirus twice. And, you know, we got to make sure that we are being safe. And on top of that, we're showing empathy for other people. So when we have young people who are coming in pain, and if you're in pain about something, there's 4 ways to deal with your pain. Number 1 is acknowledge it. Hurt people hurt people. So when you're trying to educate, activate, and motivate folks to be great, you got to take better care of yourself, right? That means you got to acknowledge the pain that you're in. And number 2, you write it down. And you're saying, why do you write it down? Because you got to release it from your spirit. So you acknowledge it, you write it down. Number 3, you speak to somebody that you trust, and you can't trust everybody. And last but not least is forgiveness. Who do you need to forgive? Because if you keep holding on to that pain, you're going to hurt somebody else. Somebody hurt you 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and you're still holding on to that same pain, and it comes out in your pores. And you have to make sure that you acknowledge your own pain before you teach a young man how to deal with his. I see teachers and administrators all the time, well, I want to help him deal with his pain. Well, you're angry yourself. Why don't you smile today? Your emotions are up to you. Emotions are feelings on the inside caused by pain or pleasure that move you in a direction. And your emotions are up to you. And however you act that day is up to you, right? The power here. Thank you for this. Thank you so much. Somebody said powerful video. Let me see. They are called troubled, depressed. I'm seeing all your comments coming in. I'm gonna get to as many as I can. Some of you still talking about slumber, sleep. We passed that. Y'all gotta let that go. We gotta move on. That was an activity not too long ago. So let's keep on pressing through this thing. And we're talking about how to acknowledge pain, because we have to teach our kids how to acknowledge their pain. But in a new perspective study In a new perspective study, educators were more likely to judge the behavior as hostile if the kid was African American. So a good friend of mine said I was being passionate, but you see it as passion. Some people see it as aggressive. Some people see it as out of control. Some people see it as more than what it is. And I want you to understand that just because I show passion don't mean I'm being aggressive, and it don't mean I'm being out of control, right? And we have to stop looking at our kids and stop calling them names, stop dehumanizing our young men of color. They have the ability to learn and be great just like everybody else. I grew up in Brightwood in Indianapolis. I never knew my father. I grew up in poverty, and I'm married. I have 3 kids. I have a grandchild. Don't tell me that this thing can't be turned around. You show me your friends, I show you your future. You got to stop looking at me as a failure and look at me as a success, like Miss Sangster did. And I'm going to talk about Miss Sangster in a few minutes, because I can't do a presentation without bringing up Dr. Dolores Sangster. And I'm going to say her names several times through this presentation. I know she's passed away. She's a member of Delta Sigma Theta. She was in education for over 40 years, but this lady single-handedly changed my life. So there are several factors that affect males of color. Number 1 is racial microaggressions. Number 2 is invisibilization. Invisibilization is the act of seeing a situation or circumstance as invisible, not important, without breadth or depth. So we're talking about somebody owning a pet and somebody mistreating your pet. You're going to be on national news when you mistreat a pet. But if you kill a man, you don't have to go to jail. You know, that man has a family too. Invisible means if it's not happening in your world, it's of no interest to you. Marginalization is somebody being put in a powerless position, somebody who's very qualified to be promoted to the next level, but their power is being stripped away from them, and somebody who's less qualified is coming in. Pre-criminalization, that's treating somebody as criminal prior to any indication that they're showing any criminal behavior. Stereotype threat, believe in the negativity that you hear. And colorism it happens in a lot of our Black communities and our communities of color. You have people of color going after each other, light skin, dark skin. I wish I had time to deal with this today, but they got me on a time limit with Black Expo, because my frat brother and good friend Mark Lamont Hill is going to blow your socks off next. He's going to be a part of our conference next week. So we're going to keep pushing through this. But we got to talk about these racial microaggressions. These are the everyday insults, indignities, and demeaning messages sent by people who are unaware of the messages they're sending. So you think this stuff is cool, but you're really insulting people. You're a credit to your race. What does that mean? These are things I've heard personally. You're a credit to your race. What does that mean? Can somebody help me out? What does it mean for somebody to say you're a credit to your race? When I look at you, I don't see color. Well, what the heck do you see? I see color every day. And it's okay that you see color, right? You're different than them. I know you. Well, first of all, who is them, right? So some of these things are made to be compliments, but they're really insults. Were you born in the U.S.? Why does it matter if I was born in the U.S. or not, right? So it shouldn't matter. You speak good English. What's bad English? Is it Ebonics? I was on the airplane one time sitting in first class doing some work, and I was on the phone with a client who wanted to bring me in to do a professional development. And I shared with him my plane was about to take off. I'm gonna call you when I land. We can finish talking, get the date together, and whatever. And the man next to me said, "You really speak good English." What does that mean? What am I supposed to be speaking, Ebonics? So we have to be careful with these comments. They're meant to be compliments, but they really degrading. When you calling kids names or stereotyping kids, that's racial microaggressions, and it's also spreading racism. Let me give you 4 tips to managing your biases. Number 1 is word choice. Word choice is extremely important. Be careful with your words. Words have power. I told you that earlier. So word choice is important. Number 2, avoid stereotyping. And what I mean by avoid stereotyping, just because somebody's growing up in the hood don't mean they won't be successful. Stop saying that. You know, so word choice is important. Your words is the reason why you're in the doghouse right now. I know I'm talking to some man right now, and you don't know how to communicate with your wife, and you're in the doghouse, and you're in the drought. I say you're in the doghouse, and you're in the drought because you don't know how to communicate. Okay, I don't know who that was for, but God put it on my spirit to tell you. I'm trying to get you out of the drought, bruh. You got to learn how to communicate to get out of the drought. Okay, anyway, you ain't listening to me. Word choice, avoid stereotyping. Number 3 is consider your intentions. If your intentions are for somebody to be successful, then success should come out of your mouth. Success should be in your imagination. And you have to start looking at these kids differently. Last but not least, focus on the impact. I need to say that again. Somebody didn't hear me. I'm going to say it for the people in the back because they didn't hear me back here. I said, focus on the impact. If you want the impact to be positive, then your words should reflect that. Stop stereotyping and make sure your intentions are good. Everybody got that? Stay with me because we're almost there. Now, listen, we can go ahead and skip through this because I probably got about 20 more minutes of lecturing, and I'm going to ask you some questions. Somebody said they want to know how men are wired. I think I can just skip over this section unless somebody really wants to know how men are wired. In fact, if you want to know how men are wired, put something down in the question and answer. Let me think about it because I thought about just skipping over this section because I don't think anybody want to know how men are wired. So if you want to know how men are wired, put a comment in the question and answer and let me know that you want to know how men are wired. And I think about putting it in there. Let me see. Somebody said, stay on it. Somebody said, do it, please. They came in anonymous. Somebody said, I sure do. And all your comments coming in. Yes, I want to know how men are wired. Why do y'all want to know how men are wired? Okay, listen, when we're talking about dealing with our young Black and Hispanic males, I really need you to understand how men are wired, because if you know how men are wired, y'all stop coming in anonymous and put some respect on your name. Put your name on your comments and stop coming in anonymous. Nobody's going to judge you, and we want you to come in because we're going to be talking facts. Somebody said how men are wired, how men are wired, stay with it. I'm seeing all this coming in. How are men wired? Please tell me, I need this. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and push forward. Y'all asked for it, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you. Since I've been born, since I came out of my mama's womb, the first thing I heard was men don't cry. Man up, be tough, don't show emotion, don't be weak, don't be a punk. Now, if I've heard all this ever since I was a baby, how am I going to act when I come into your presence? I need you to tell me that. How am I going to act? Give me one word to describe how I'm going to act when I come into your presence. I've already heard men don't cry, man up, don't be a punk. Somebody says stoic, strong. Somebody says stubborn, hard. So I need you to understand how I've been wired. I didn't have a man teaching me. I had a woman teaching me, but she didn't know about being a man because my mother was not a man. She was a woman, right? So this is how we're wired. We've been told this since the beginning of time. It's been embedded into our DNA. That man ain't trying to be hard. He's been taught that. He's been taught not to show emotion. He don't show no emotion. He don't care about me. Stop saying that. Stop. He's been taught not to show emotion. Sometimes we act distant. That's not something that we want to do. We've been taught to do that, right? So hard skills, anger, rage, disappointment, neglect, hopelessness, abuse. This is hard skills that we walked in with. And you see this picture down here, and I put this picture here on purpose because that's how I felt as a young man. I felt like the police are trying to get me. They don't like me, and they got a word they use for me. And then I got people that look like me, don't like me, right? So what does that cause me to be? It caused me to be lost and confused, right? So as a young man, I felt lost. I felt like I got these people over here treat me like crap because they being racist toward me. And then I got these people over here treat me like crap and they look like me and I feel lost. And that's how a lot of our young kids feel. But I'm walking in with anger, rage, disappointment, neglect, all these things I'm walking in with. Let me ask you a question. What did you do personally for me to walk in with this? I'll wait. Tell me what you did personally for me to walk in angry and enraged and with all these different things. What did you do personally? Somebody said nothing. If you did nothing for me to walk in with all this, why are you taking it personal? If you didn't do anything, then why are you taking it personal? Somebody talk to me. Why do we always take it personal? That means you got to get out of your own feelings. So when I'm walking in angry, I want you to teach me how to problem solve. When I'm walking in with rage, I need you to teach me how to respect. If I'm walking in with disappointment, I need you to teach me about honesty because I've been lied to over and over and over again, and I've been traumatized over and over again. So when I come in from a neglectful situation, teach me how to effectively communicate. When I'm coming in from hopelessness, teach me about trust. So when I'm coming from an abusive situation, teach me empathy. You can't put out fire with fire. You can't put out hard skills with more hard skills. So if I'm a young man and I'm coming in with hard skills, your job to educate, activate, and motivate me to be great is to teach me soft skills. And you can't teach me soft skills when you hard yourself. We got educators coming in angry, upset, enraged, and then we wonder why our kids are acting out. Well, you're not leading by example, right? So we got to make sure that we're controlling our own emotions. And I say emotions are feelings on the inside caused by pain or pleasure that move you in a direction. So you got to check your emotions at the door. So what are your emotions? You can't put out hard skills with hard skills. Only soft skills can do that. So if I'm coming in hard, teach me how to soften up. And guess what, ladies? It's not going to happen overnight. And I'm talking to my brothers too. And it's not going to happen all night. I'm talking about my brothers from all colors and my sisters from all colors, because we all brothers and sisters, whether y'all like it or not. So how men are wired. So if you got an arrogant man, I can guarantee you he's insecure about something. And I know somebody said they need to hear that today. I say if he's arrogant, he's insecure about something. If he's angry, I can tell you 3 places that anger is coming from. He's in fear, he's frustrated, or he's hurt about something. I'm trying to help you out. If he's angry, he's living in fear, he's frustrated, or he's hurt about something, right? So we need to stop where's the anger coming from? Well, what are you in fear about? Where's the anger coming from? Tell me what's hurting you. Where's the anger coming from? Tell me why you're so frustrated. You see the difference? If somebody's angry, don't say stop being angry. Ask them, what are you in fear about? Tell me why you're frustrated. Tell me what I can do to help. Somebody's arrogant, they insecure. If they have out of control emotions, guess what? He's gonna try to control you. I need somebody say I need it. If he got out of control emotions, that means he's gonna try to control you. Because when he can't control you, he try to control somebody else. When he can't control his own emotions, he's trying to control your emotions. So the amygdala, somebody say amygdala. See, the amygdala is a small almond-shaped structure connected to the hippocampus that plays a very important role in the processing of what? Emotions. And those emotions include fear and anger. And the amygdala tends to be larger in men. So some of you saying, well, goodness gracious, Mr. Jackson got a big old head. It ain't my head. It's that amygdala, Tanya Bell. You see that amygdala back there? See that amygdala is larger in men, and that means we have the affinity for more fear and more anger and to get frustrated, right? So since the amygdala is larger in men, we actually, at times, and I'm gonna preference this, at times, men have more emotions than women. I'm gonna say it again. Y'all acting like y'all don't hear me. I'm gonna say it for those folks in the front. Y'all in the front, y'all not listening. Men tend to have more emotions than women. I said the amygdala is bigger. That's where fear and anger comes from, and it's larger in men. Some of y'all still don't hear me. Let me go on to the next slide. Men are visual. What do I mean when I say men are visual? Well, a man will see a woman walking across the room, and he'll have all kinds of thoughts about being with that woman. Now, I'm just telling you that men are visual. And there's a lot of visual men during this presentation today. But women are visual too. Now, a woman to see a man and she'd be like, he's nice looking. But then she started wondering, how many kids does he have? Is he married? Do he have all his teeth? What's his credit score? Does he have his own house? Does he live in his mama's basement? How many times he been married? How much money do he have? Where does he work at? Does he have a job? So a woman minds wonders to all these things, but a man is different. He'll see a woman and he'll like, man, I sure like to hook up with her. Or I like to get to know her. And you don't know nothing about her. She can be crazy. I mean, it can be all kinds of things. Somebody said from a male perspective, why won't most men acknowledge this arrogance? Because they're arrogant. That's why they won't acknowledge the arrogant. They don't acknowledge their arrogance because they're insecure about something from a male perspective. So if a man is arrogant, that means he's insecure about something. If he's insecure about something, the last thing he's going to be is humble. And guess what? You cannot live in your humility and your pride at the same time. You got to make a choice. So there's a lot of men who are arrogant because they're not humble. And I just want to be clear on that. Because when you know who you are and you know whose you are, then you don't open yourself up to be attacked by somebody else's words or feel disrespected, so I want to make sure I make that clear. So if a man is arrogant, it's hard for him to be humble and it's hard for him to show some emotion, right? So men are more aggressive. Men have delayed hearing. I need to say that to you again. I said, men have delayed hearing. Stop getting on your significant other, talking about you ain't listening to me. Listen, we have delayed hearing. Now we have selective hearing during the game. I gotta be honest. I gotta be honest when the game ain't been no games lately. That's why your husband, your boyfriend he can hear you. But during the game, we have selective hearing because sometimes we so clued in to the game, we don't hear anything else around us. Now, selective hearing, delayed hearing, totally different. So if he got selective hearing, that means he wants to be in the drought and he wants to be in the doghouse and he got to deal with that. But if he have delayed hearing, ladies, please give the men a chance. If he didn't hear you, repeat yourself. I go through this with my wife all the time. She'd be like, you didn't hear me? I said, sweetheart, if I didn't answer you, that means I didn't hear you. Okay? Somebody said they don't like to be nagged at. Stop it. Delayed hearing leads to delayed actions. And it does lead to delayed actions. Anonymous, stop being anonymous, or I'm gonna stop answering your messages. Put some respect on and put your name on that thing, right? So men are visual, men are more aggressive. I need you to understand the young men you're working with. They're visual, they're more aggressive, they have delayed hearing, they have a higher pain threshold. I'm not talking about a threshold of pain, physical pain. I'm talking about emotional pain. I'm talking about holding on to trauma and all the internal pain. Men have not been taught properly how to handle their emotions. So sometimes it comes out in anger and they throw temper tantrums and all this other stuff. We have to teach our young men how to control their emotions because the weakest man on the planet is a man who can't control his emotions. I said the weakest man on the planet is a man who can't control his emotions. I didn't say a man who doesn't have emotions. I say a man who cannot control his emotions. You're weak, because if I can't control my emotions, my wife, my children, everything is going to be out of control. So how do we teach our young men how to control their emotions? Number one is you control your emotions, because many educators have out of control emotions, right? As a mom of two boys, I had to realize this delayed hearing was correct. Thank you, ma'am. You do. Delayed hearing is correct, but selective hearing is correct too. Make sure there's no games or anything that's on. A lot of men don't like to ask for help. So men are always trying to impress their significant other. I don't care if y'all been together for one week or if y'all been together for 50 years. A man is always trying to impress his lady. So that's a whole nother story. I wish I had time to dig into that, but I want you to understand the men's brain. So you go from fight, flight to freeze, and you got to understand how men's brain works. Okay. So we have to make sure that we helping folks feel comfortable enough to show those emotions so we can get to the bottom of what's going on here. Right. So there's a lot of empathy gaps when we talk about educating our Black and Hispanic males. There's a lot of empathy gaps. Here's one pointer I want to give you, and I need you to write this down. Stop feeling sorry for low-income kids. I'm gonna pause there and let that sit with you. Stop feeling sorry for low-income kids. Because when you feel sorry for me, your expectations are lowered, right? So when you lower your expectations, you're not helping me at all. In fact, you're hurting me. What you can do is raise your expectations, set high expectations, but more importantly, I need you to expect me to do well. Set high expectations for me, expect me to do well, but don't feel sorry for me. I don't need you feeling sorry for me. You can have empathy. Yes, I've been abused. Yes, my best friend was murdered. Yes, I've been assaulted. Yes, I've been through sexual and physical abuse, but I don't need you feeling sorry for me. I need you to teach me how to navigate through this school system. I need you to teach me how to run faster. How do I run faster to catch up? I cannot run fast when you're feeling sorry for me and you all, oh, woe is him. I ain't say don't have empathy. I said, don't feel sorry for low-income kids. Don't feel sorry for kids who are coming from low backgrounds or socioeconomic disadvantaged backgrounds, because I'm one of those kids, so I can speak on it. When you're feeling sorry for me, your expectations are lower. And when you lower your expectations, and now I'm going out in the real world trying to survive in the real world because you lowered your expectations and you didn't prepare me for the real world. I need you to prepare me for what I'm gonna see out here in this real world, because you didn't prepare me because you felt sorry for me and you lowered your expectations. And when you lower your expectations, you're not helping me at all, okay? Somebody stay with me on that. So somebody say high expectations, write that down. Set high expectations, but expect me to do well, right? Somebody said we need to respect all of our students by holding them up to their full potential. How can you hold me up to my full potential if you're feeling sorry for me? When you're feeling sorry for me, you can't hold me up to my full potential. Okay? All right, let's keep going, y'all, because we got to push through this thing. They only gave me an hour, but I'm going to respect the time. I'm a respecter of time. And I want to tell you, here are some things that kids need to hear every day. Repeat after me. Say you matter. Say you are somebody. I can feel you through the screen. Say you are successful. Say you are smart. Say I believe in you. Say you can overcome anything. This is what kids need to hear every day. How can we expect kids to be successful if we don't speak success into their spirit? This is even your own children. You have kids at home, your kids acting crazy at home, and here you are, the administrator, you're the superintendent of a school district, and your son getting kicked out of school. Or you're the principal of a school, and your daughter's getting in trouble. Or you're a teacher, and your kids are always in trouble. And you're like, what do I do? My kids are in trouble. Speak life into your children. Speak life into these young men. Speak life into your students. Speak life into yourself. Tell yourself, I matter. I'm somebody. I'm smart. And you got to tell yourself you're smart, because some of your kids that you got at home, your biological kids, you got all those degrees and you can't help them with their homework because you're struggling yourself. I said, you got your kids at home and you can't help them with their homework because you're struggling, because you say, they ain't do this kind of work when I was in school. Where y'all get this from? Right? Write down 3 things that you're going to say to kids every day. I want you to put them in the chat. What are 3 things that you're going to say to children every single day? I can see my son having a high pain threshold, and he does come out aggressive. It happens. 3 things you're going to say to your kids every day, right? We're going to push through this thing. Somebody say, you belong here. Somebody say, I believe in you. These are words that you can't just use sometimes. You got to use it every day, right? When kids are coming in, acting out, hold these young men accountable for their actions. How do you hold them accountable? 4-part apology. When a kid does something, make them apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I did this. I would do this to make it right. Will you forgive me? And we have to set these high expectations, but we have to, more importantly, we have to expect them to do well, okay? So if you need assistance in doing this, sometimes you got to lean on your colleagues, because every kid is one caring adult away from being a success story. I want you to put the name of the person who is that one caring adult for you to help you to become a success story. Put their name down in the Q&A. Who is that name? For me, it was Dr. Dolores Sangster. I told you I'm going to say her name as many times as I can. Dr. Sangster can hear me right now talking about her. Dr. Sangster was off the chain. She was the type of educator that she showed tough love, but she would hug you one minute, and the next minute she'd be scolding you about something, but she would speak positive words into my spirit every day. This lady right here, when I was in 1st grade, she said, you matter. She said, you are somebody. She said, you will be successful. She said, you are smart. She said, I believe in you. She said, you like running your mouth. You talk so much, one of these days, you're going to be speaking in front of thousands of people. See, Dr. Sangster didn't allow me to let my circumstances become my destination. I need to say that to you again. I said, Dr. Sangster didn't allow me to use my circumstances to become my destination. Some of you are putting these names up here. I'm seeing all these names popping up, all the people who help you out along your journey. Who was that person? Somebody said Dr. McMurray. Somebody said Reverend J.C. Williams. I'm seeing all kind of names popping up here. Coach LaBelle. I know Coach LaBelle. Coach LaBelle coached me too. If you're in Indianapolis, he was my football coach. Mr. Jenkins. Whoever it was, somebody was that one caring adult. Why can't you be that one caring adult for your children? See, Dr. Dolores Sangster told me I was somebody. She saw me. She didn't allow me to use my excuses as a way of getting through life. She said excuses are tools of incompetence, right? She didn't allow us to make excuses. She said, you got to get out here and make it happen. She said, if you don't like your story, then you got to change the narrative. So I was able to speak to a group of folks, and Dr. Sangster was in the audience, and she yelled, that's one of my babies right there. That's one of my babies. And I jumped off the stage, and I ran and hugged and kissed Dr. Sangster on the cheek. And she said, I knew you could do it. And while everybody was clapping and giving her a standing ovation, she whispered in my ear, and she said, y'all was some bad kids. And we were some bad kids. But Dr. Sangster didn't tell us we were bad kids until we were adults. So in her memory, I got to give Much respect. Thank you, Dr. Dolores Sangster, for what you did for my life. And who's that caring adult for you? So how do we become the educator they need as I begin to close? Because I want to open it up for question and answers from you. How do we become the educator they need? We need to understand that everybody needs mental health services. And it's not just for students. We got some adults that need it. If you need some help, please seek some help for yourself. Please be patient with your kids. We got kids. You think your anxiety is you're dealing with anxiety. Take it times 1,000 when you're dealing with kids, right? Staff training is important. Myself, I do these trainings, and you have a lot of folks that do these trainings. Please bring in the right people to train your staff, because culture diversity training is available, social emotional learning, all that kind of stuff, restorative. Make sure your staff is getting trained. I said be empathetic. Don't feel sorry for kids, but be empathetic. Also be transparent. Now, many of us on this screen, I would say all 970 people on the screen have been to college. So if you've been to college, there's a chance that you drank punch out of a big, gigantic trash can with fruit in it. In fact, if you ever drank punch out of a trash can with fruit in it, I want you to send me a comment at the bottom. Some people call it hooch. Some people call it the Kappa punch. Some people call it a mega punch. Whatever you want to call it, put in, if you drink the punch, I want to see comments at the bottom. I'm seeing all these comments saying yes, yes, yes. Somebody said delicious. Somebody said Harry Buffalo, Zeta punch. So the fact that you drank that punch shows that you made some bad decisions in college. You don't know what was in that punch. Now, I made the punch, so I knew what was in it, and we didn't have a lot of resources, so we put our resources together. Listen, we all have made bad decisions. Be transparent with your students. Let them know that you haven't always made all the right decisions, but you're trying to get it right as you're helping them to get it right, okay? Jungle Juice, Harry Buffalo, y'all stop that mess. Y'all got all kind of names. Somebody said, don't eat the fruit. Well water. Okay, we got all kind of names. Oh my goodness. I'm not gonna say what Anonymous just said, because you're not gonna get me in trouble. So make sure that we're being transparent with our children. And if you're still drinking that punch today, stop. There's no need for you to be drinking that punch. Love, respect, honesty, compromise, trust, communication, fairness, empathy, all these things cause for a healthy relationship, right? If you want a healthy relationship, you need all these pillars to have a healthy relationship, right? So a person giving you advice has their own set of shortcomings. But just because you have your own set of shortcomings, it may give you the piece that you're missing. I said a person giving you advice has their own set of shortcomings, but they may be able to give you the piece you're missing. Don't wait until you get it together before you give somebody advice, because guess what? You're never, ever going to have it together. Nobody has it together. Dr. Suggs, as I begin to close, a person giving you advice isn't perfect. It has their own set of shortcomings, but they may be able to give you the piece that you're missing. I'm doing a free conference next Friday for young men 12 and up. Please have them register at robertjacksonmotivates.com. Click on Conference 2020. We're giving away 10 $1,000 scholarships. We're giving away laptops, bikes. My man, Mark Lamont Hill, who's coming up next, he's one of our speakers. Please have your young men register for the conference, and men. So it's men and young men 12 and up. We're going to have this conference. And also, pick up your copy. Become the educator they need. Go to ascd.org or go to robertjacksonmotivates.com. Pick up a copy of the book so you can get all the information. It just won the Gold Excel Award the other day. So please, please pick up a copy of the book. And we also have some other things in the arsenal. We're going to talk about that shortly. I have some other books on the website. We have a workbook for girls. If you're working with young ladies, we got a resource for you. If you're working with young men, we have a book and workbook, Solutions Educating Black and Latino Males. And we have Put a Stop to Bullying. And whether you AK, Deltas, Qs, whoever you are, we got your color. Educate, activate, motivate all students to be successes. We got the pink and black. We got purple for the Qs. We got the alphas colors. We got the Zetas and the Sigmas, the Deltas, the AKs, the Kappas, my bros. Educate, activate, motivate all students. And follow me on Twitter at RJ Motivates. Follow me on Instagram, Rob J Motivates. Follow me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Facebook. Go to my YouTube channel, Robert Jackson Motivates YouTube channel. And how many of you on MySpace? Okay, if you're on MySpace, I need you to get off of this call right now and end that page. Thank you for being here today. We're going to open it up for the last 10 minutes for question and answer. We have till 11:30 before they cut us off. So thank you so much. Dr. Suggs, waiting on you.
Jungle juice. Okay.
Jungle juice. You see
All
that?
right. All right, Mr. Jackson. There were lots of comments, and thank you for participating in this way today, those of you out there. Lots of questions about how do you help children with those affirmations when in some cases they've not heard those, and some kids resist that. No, I'm not smart. No, I can't do this. What advice do you have for our folks who really want to help children move in that direction?
Well, my advice is to keep on telling them anyway. When you say something long enough, it gets embedded in their system. Just like all the negativity that they hear every day. The negativity is in their system because they hear it every day. You need to continue to say these positive words to these kids until they believe it. If somebody tell you something long enough, you're going to start believing it. And like I said, Miss Sangster is a good example for me. Miss Sangster would tell me every day that I was great, but I got in trouble and she had to deal with that, the other side of that. But she was consistent. Educators, we got to be consistent. We got to be fair and we got to be consistent when it comes to our children. And we have to let them know that, listen, we care about you. We care about your well-being, but we got to speak some positive words into your spirit. But before you speak some positive words to your children, speak some positive words into yourself.
Awesome. Awesome. Also, there were a couple of questions about how we bring our parents along. Can you talk to us a little bit about as we work with our children and work and bring our parents along in that same way? So just some advice about how we can be more proactive and work with our parents as partners in helping our children excel at high levels.
Well, thank you, Doc, for asking that, because that's a great question. In order for us to be inclusive of our parents, we have to understand where our parents are coming from and we have to meet them where they are. Stop spending time complaining about parents unless you're parent of the year. And there's no perfect parents nowhere. We all make mistakes. We all have made bad decisions. We have to meet our parents where they are. How do we meet our parents where they are? We have to provide training for our parents. And guess what? During the trainings, when the pandemic is over, because it will end, and when you provide training, you got to provide resources. You got to provide food, sometimes even prizes. You got to find ways to pull parents out. There's a lot of people at this conference. We had, I think they had 5,000 people registered. It was a free conference. Our conference next Friday is free. You got to let people know about the resources, but we got to help our parents along. We have to have conversations with them. How do we have conversations with our parents? By just meeting them where they are. Listen, I'm a parent. I haven't made all the right choices. I'm not here to get down on you about being a parent. I want to be an advocate. I want to help you out with your child. I believe if we work together, we're going to be in the best interest of this kid. So I don't want to work against you. I want us to work together. Tell me what you need from me. And just have that constant communication with parents, whether it's emails and you can blind copy everybody and sending them weekly updates and giving those parents an opportunity to be involved.
Wonderful. Thanks for that advice. We had several comments where some of our participants expressed that they are in situations where they work with colleagues who are not maybe in this place, and they're surrounded by people who are not providing those affirmations, who have low expectations for children. How do you, in that environment, who are working with people in situations with children of color, how do you help and be an advocate in that environment with your colleagues? How do you help bring people along?
Well, you do it by leading by example, Dr. Suggs. You lead by example. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. So not only do you lead by example, you got to speak up, speak out, and speak often. I'm going to say that again. You got to speak up, you got to speak out, and you got to speak often. I ain't say confront anybody. I said speak up, speak out, and speak often. The only way a bully knows they're a bully is you have to speak out against that spirit. And you got to speak out against that person who's doing the bullying. So if somebody's constantly bullying somebody, you got to speak out against that spirit. So if somebody is constantly degrading kids, stop turning the blind eye and say something. Pull that person aside and say, hey, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, but I've worked with kids and I just want you to try this. Or find out what their understanding is. Or go to your superiors and say, hey, we need some training in this area. We got to constantly be providing training for our educators, because I get anonymous messages all the time. Listen, this was a great session, but I'm such and such. I just didn't know how to do it. How can I do it? And, I give them pointers, but we need to understand that everybody's not where we are. People do things based on their perception, but it's all in your approach. And we have to stop being so confrontational and start teaching. How can we teach more? We teach more by leading by example and giving somebody strategies and steps. Don't just fuss at somebody. Don't just ridicule somebody. Give them some steps on what they need to do to get it right. And like I said, that's why we write these books and that's why we do these things. Here's a good resource for you. And there's some other resources out there. Make sure that you're giving them something tangible that they can do to get it right.
Absolutely. And during your presentation, Mr. Jackson, you were very forthcoming. The comments really, you hit a chord with some of your pictures, some of the video. And so, unfortunately, this will be my last question before we finish up the session. But we do have some of our colleagues that are dealing with white guilt, maybe even paralyzed in terms of what's happening in our communities right now.
Sure.
Getting ready to get back in the schoolhouse, want to make some positive change. How do we move beyond that guilt and beyond that paralysis?
Well, you move beyond it by not feeling sorry for yourself, but just understanding that this stuff is happening. And when George Floyd was murdered on national TV, and I did say murdered, when he was murdered on national TV, silence speaks more volumes than anything. I noticed that some of my colleagues were silent and some of them spoke out, right? I would have teammates that I haven't played football with in over 20 years reached out to me and like, listen, I'm not Black. I don't know what it's like to feel to be a man of color, but I do understand this is wrong. I understand you're my friend and I just want to check on you. I want to make sure you're doing okay. So again, like I said, if you're feeling guilty, just look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I doing my part? Because we can't do it alone. We need you to speak up, speak out, and speak often. We need to make sure that you're doing that. Speak up, speak out, and speak often. Because if you didn't do anything wrong, you have nothing to feel guilty about. But you need to understand when somebody else is showing their passion about something because of their experiences. If you never had a gun at your face by a police officer, then you can't understand what I've dealt with. If you've never been slammed on the ground or been discriminated against or been kicked out of school because they say you smoke weed and you never smoked before, and you get kicked out for 5 days, and on your second day of your suspension, you almost get killed because some guys try to rob you when you should have been in school. So if you can't understand that, or the George Floyds, or the Trayvon Martins, or the Breonna Taylors, and all these different things that are going on that we're sick and tired of, sometimes you just got to listen, and you got to speak out, and you got to speak up, and you got to speak often. Check on your friends of color. Ask them how they're doing. Tell them that I will never understand what it's like to live in your shoes, but I am empathetic. That's all you can do.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for attending today, Becoming the Educator They Need, Mindsets and Strategies for Educating Black and Latino Males. And thank you, of course, to our presenter, Mr. Robert Jackson. Please remember to complete the session survey. You'll find the link right there in the chat box. Your feedback is critical in helping us with planned content and experiences for next year's conference. Again, thank you for attending today. Please join us for the keynote address, 11:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with Dr. Marla Hill, and that session is entitled The Classroom and the Cell, Conversations on Black Life in America. Have a wonderful day.
Let me give my contact information. Somebody keeps asking. Robert at robertjacksonmotivates.com is my email address. Robert at robertjacksonmotivates.com. Website, robertjacksonmotivates.com. Mark Lamont Hill, come on, Newt. You got to tear it up. God bless you. Thank you, Indiana Black Expo. Jennifer, Tanya Bell, you're doing a great job. Thank you, Dr. Suggs. Good luck.